Alrighty, guys, we are now 11-3 with a push in our last 15 NFL tier package bets on my website. But before we get into some more of that, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the video here today for NFL Week 4. My name is Brock Page, and I've been doing sports picks for free right here on YouTube since 2016. I also sell my personal sports bets on patreon.com/BrockPage. Once again, guys, I'm 11-3 with a push in my last 15 NFL tier package bets dating back to last season. Now, if you want to see which one of these picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my NFL tier package bets on my website. I currently have over 660 members who are signed up and active on that site right now. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to take a look at Thursday Night Football. I'm talking about the Dolphins at the Bengals, and that'll be an 8:15 Eastern kickoff on Thursday, September 29th, 2022. Cincinnati's -3.5 at home, totals 47 and a hook. And even though they're favored by a couple of points at home, it's actually the Bengals who lost 2 out of their last 3. And they failed to cover twice during that span. Now, this is a Bengals team that struggles with sacks and turning the football over. Joe Burrow's been sacked 15 times already. He's also thrown 4 picks. Now, he's facing a Dolphins defense on the other side who actually just held Buffalo to 19 points in a win this past Sunday. Brandon Jones and Jerome Baker, they've combined for over 40 tackles between the two of them. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, he's been listed as questionable for the Dolphins, although I'm actually pretty optimistic he'll play. And the reason for that is they're saying it's some back issues, but I actually think he just got his bell rung on Sunday. And in order to kind of avoid concussion protocol, they're calling it some back problems, like a vertebrae or something. But I think he's all right. I think physically he's okay. I think he just got his bell rung, and they were smart enough to avoid concussion protocol, although I don't know if that's too smart in the long run. But anyway, injury-wise, Tua, Carter, Little, Davis, Waddle, and Long, they're all listed as questionable for the Fins. Meanwhile, Reeder and Pratt, they are questionable for Cincinnati. And when it comes to the total, the Bengals are 3-0 to the under to start the season. Meanwhile, 2 out of Miami's last 3 fell under the line. Plus, with the potential threat of Tua not being 100%, that could, affect these guys offensively a little bit. Having said all that, though, I do like the Dolphins plus 3.5, under 47 and a hook. Next ball game, it is going to be Vikings Saints, 9:30 Sunday morning in England. Minnesota's -2.5, total 43 and a hook. And even though the Vikes are favored in this one, I do have serious concerns about their defense. These guys are currently in the bottom 3 in yards allowed per contest. They're also allowing over 275 yards a game through the air. They're facing a New Orleans team who certainly likes to air it out themselves. These guys are in the top 10 in passing right now. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, they've combined for nearly 450 total receiving yards between the two of them. Meanwhile, defensively, the Saints have been real tough to throw against. They're in the top 5 in pass defense. Pete Werner currently leads the D right now with 32 total tackles. When it comes to the injury report, Pete, May, Hill, and Smith, they're all listed as questionable. Michael Thomas is also a little bit banged up, and Jarvis Landry, he's still out. Meanwhile, for Minnesota on the other side, Smith, Cook, and Booth, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, 6 out of these teams' last 10 meetings did get over the line. So if you're into historical trends, certainly want to think about that one there. I'm going to lean toward New Orleans plus 2.5, over 43 and a hook. Next ball game, it is going to be Bears-Giants, 1 o'clock East. The New York Football Giants are -3, totals 39. Now, the G-Men are doing a great job running the football this year. They're in the top 5 in rush yards per contest. Saquon Barkley's averaging over 105 yards a game on the ground, and he's got a couple of touchdowns on the year. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the football, The G-men have been tough to throw against. They're allowing under 205 passing yards per contest. Safety Julian Love, he's leading the charge with 27 total tackles. He's facing a Bears club who's having a whole bunch of problems moving the football. These guys are dead last in total yards per game. They're also averaging just 17 points per contest. And if you think this Bears D is going to bail them out, well, you might want to think again. These guys are in the bottom 3 in the league in stopping the run. Now, injury-wise, Cruikshank, Pringle, Adams, Johnson, and Jones are questionable for Chicago. Meanwhile, for the Giants on the other side, Williams, Toney, and Robinson, they're listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, both teams saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line, respectively. I'm going to lean toward the Giants -3, under 39. Next ball game, it is going to be Jags-Eagles, 1 o'clock East. Philadelphia's -6.5, totals 48. Now, I'll tell you what, there's really not much the Eagles have been doing wrong lately. Kind of shut it down a little bit late in games, but you know, when you're as efficient as they are in the first half, I mean, you can afford to do that. These guys lead the NFL in total yards per contest, and they're throwing it for just about 300 yards a game. Jalen Hurts has also thrown just 1 interception on the season, and the Birds have yet to lose a fumble. It's a team that's moving the ball and protecting it. Now, wide receiver A.J. Brown, he's also averaging over 100 yards a game receiving. But if you think it's just offense in Philly, well, you may want to think again. These guys have been tough to move the ball against. The Birds allowed just 15 total points in their last 2 games combined. They also sacked Carson Wentz 9 times last week. They're taking on a Jacksonville team who's had some difficulty defending the pass themselves. They're allowing over 250 yards a game through the air. Now, Jacksonville also allowed 28 points to Washington in a Week 1 loss. And of course, this was the same Washington team that Philly sacked 9 times this past Sunday. Now, total-wise, Philly saw their last 2 straight fall under the number. And like I said earlier, they do have a tendency to throttle down a bit offensively late in games. So I'm going to lean toward the Eagles, -6.5, under 48. Next ball game, Seahawks, Lions, 1 o'clock East. Detroit's -4.5, totals 50. Now, the Lions have covered in all 3 of their games this year, certainly making their backers some money. They've also had little issue moving the chains. They're rushing for over 170 yards a game on the ground, and they certainly find themselves in the top 3 in scoring. Now, they're facing a Seattle team who's got one of the worst rush defenses in the game. These guys are in the bottom 3 in rushing yards allowed per contest. When it comes to offensive production, well, these guys aren't very good running it. Seattle's averaging under 75 rushing yards per game. Now, injury-wise, Harris, Coleman, Homer, and Blount, they are questionable for Seattle. Meanwhile, for Detroit, Walker, Jackson, and St. Brown, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, the Lions are 3-0 to the over to start the year. Meanwhile, Seattle saw their most recent outing get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Detroit, -4.5, over 50. Next ball game, it is going to be Chargers, Texans, 1 o'clock East. The LA Chargers are -5.5, totals 44. And even though the Chargers got blasted on Sunday, they still covered the number in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. They're also throwing for more yards a game than most clubs in the league right now. Of course, that's thanks to Justin Herbert, who's throwing for over 300 yards a game along with 7 touchdowns. Now, they're facing a Houston defense on the other side of things who certainly has problems getting off the field. These guys are in the bottom 5 in yards allowed per contest. And when it comes to offensive production with the Texans, well, these guys are scoring only 16 points a game. They currently find themselves in the bottom 5 in total yards. Now, injury-wise, Jordan and Hinnish are questionable for Houston. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, Allen, Lindsley, Bosa, Jackson, and Parham are questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, both teams saw their Week 3 outings get over the line respectively. I'm going to lean toward the Chargers, -5.5 in a bounce-back spot, over 44. Next game, Titans, Colts, 1 o'clock East. Indianapolis is -3.5 at home, totals 43. Now, the Colts have done a fantastic job against the run this year. They're holding their opponents under 80 yards a game on the ground. Of course, you're going to need that kind of effort going up against Tennessee. Obviously, they run the ball well. I can't even say they run the ball well on paper because they're not even running it well. They have the potential to run it very, very well. How about that? Anyway, the Colts, they just held Kansas City to only 17 points in their Week 3 victory over them. They're taking on a Titans team who lost 2 of 3 to start the year, and they really do look dead on offense. These guys somehow are rushing for under 95 yards a game. Meanwhile, defensively, the Titans are allowing 28 points per contest, and they have a tough time slowing down the run themselves. Now, injury-wise, Dupree, Adonai, and Amadi, they are questionable for Tennessee. Phillips is out. Meanwhile, for Indy on the other side, Leonard and Flowers are questionable. Now, total-wise, Indy's 3-0 to the under to start the year. I'm going to lean toward the Colts, -3.5, under 43. Next game, Bills, Ravens, 1 o'clock East. Buffalo's -3.5, total 51. And even though Buffalo got upset this past Sunday, they're still throwing for more yards than anyone else in the league. And that could be bad news for Ravens fans because this Baltimore secondary allows more passing yards a game than anyone else in the league. They are dead last in pass defense. Now, Josh Allen, he is completing 71% of his passes for the Bills, and he averages nearly 350 yards a game through the air. Meanwhile, Stephon Diggs, he's averaging $115 a game, along with 4 touchdowns. And when it comes to defensive play, well, the Bills are they're real tough to move the ball against. They're allowing fewer yards a game than any other club in the NFL right now. Now they're facing a Baltimore squad on the other side of things, who's the exact opposite defensively. These guys allow 26 points a game, and they're giving up more yards per contest than any other team in the league. Now, injury-wise, Houston, Pierce, and McCarry are questionable for Baltimore. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, Poyer, Phillips, Kumaro, Morse, Hart, Oliver, Bates, Brown, and Bedford, they're all listed as questionable for them. Definitely want to keep an eye on that injury report there. When it comes to the number, Baltimore saw their last 2 straight get over the line. I'm going to lean toward Buffalo -3.5, over 51. Next matchup, Browns, Falcons, 1 o'clock East. Cleveland's -1.5, total 49 and a hook. Now, Cleveland has the #1 rushing attack in football right now. They're gaining nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. They're averaging over 28 points per contest. Nick Chubb's averaging over 110 yards a game on the ground right now, and he gains 5.5 yards per carry. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of things, the Browns have done a nice job slowing down the run themselves. They're allowing under 85 yards a game rushing. And of course, they're certainly going to need that kind of effort against Atlanta. That's one of the few things the Falcons do well. But something they don't do great is throw the football. They're in the bottom 10 right now in the NFL in passing yards per game. This defense on the other side, they're also giving up 27 points per contest. Now, injury-wise, Wilkinson is questionable for Atlanta. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, Clowney, Hubbard, and Garrett are banged up. When it comes to the scoring, both teams are 3-0 to the over this year, respectively. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland -1.5, over 49 and a hook. Next ball game, it is going to be Jets at the Steelers, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are -3.5, totals 40. But despite being favored at home, the Steelers have had a tough time moving the sticks. They're second to last in the NFL right now in total yards per contest. Mitchell Trubisky also has thrown just 2 touchdown passes and averages under 190 passing yards a game. Now he's facing a Jets team on the other side who has actually done a pretty nice job offensively. They're in the top 10 right now in offensive yards per contest. Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis, they also have over 400 receiving yards combined between the two of them. Now, when it comes to the injury report, George Fant and Zach Wilson are questionable to play. There is a chance, we'll see a Zach Wilson sighting, but if not, these guys still have been able to move the ball without him, with Flacco at the helm. And when it comes to the total, well, both defenses have given up their fair share of points. Both teams also saw their Week 2 contests get over the number respectively. I'm going to lean toward the Jets plus 3.5. Over 40. Next ball game, Commanders, Cowboys, 1 o'clock East. Dallas is -3, total 42.5. Now the Cowboys are on a 2-game winning streak, and they covered in both of those victories. They've really been catapulted by some great defensive play. They're allowing only 17 points a game, and they actually rank in the top 5 in defending the pass. Dallas is also allowing under 180 yards a game through the air. Micah Parsons has certainly provided a ferocious pass rush. He's got 4 sacks on the year and double-digit tackles. And they're facing a Commanders O-line who's let Carson Wentz be sacked 15 times already. And when it comes to establishing a run game, these guys just haven't done it. They're gaining only 86 yards a game on the ground. But really, if you think about it, Washington's biggest problem is their defense. These guys really not playing well. They're giving up over 27 points a game. And they rank in the bottom 10 in yards allowed per contest. Now, injury-wise, Tuhill, Smith-Williams, and Wise, they are questionable for Washington. Meanwhile, for Dallas, Lawrence, Kearse, Gallup, Schultz, McGovern, and Gifford, they are all listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, the Cowboys are 3-0 to the under to start the season. Meanwhile, Washington, on the other side of things, they saw their most recent outing fall under the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Dallas -3, under 42.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Cardinals at the Panthers, 4:05 Eastern kickoff on Sunday. Carolina's -2, totals 42. And even though they are favored at home, the Panthers do have significant problems moving the chains. They're in the bottom 3 in offensive yards per contest. They're also facing a Cardinals defense who, believe it or not, they do a nice job slowing down the run. They're actually limiting their opponents to just 102 yards a game on the ground. And even though the Cards' offense really hasn't been lighting the world on fire, well, they do have a pretty solid receiver here in Marquise Brown. And they've turned the ball over only 1 time. So not many positives, but there are a few that I think give the Cardinals the advantage here. Now, injury-wise, Green, Pugh, Turner, Lawrence, Collins, and more, they're all listed as questionable for Arizona. Meanwhile, for Carolina, Jackson is questionable for them. When it comes to total, both teams saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line, respectively. I'm going to lean toward Arizona +2. Under 42. Next ball game, little AFC West action. I'm talking about the Broncos at the Raiders, 4:25 Eastern start time. Las Vegas is -2.5 at home, totals 46. And despite being favored in this one, LV is currently winless on the season, and they've yet to cover a point spread. Their defense is allowing 26 points a game, and they're having a tough time slowing down the pass. Meanwhile, offensively, they've done little to establish the run game. They're gaining only 80 yards per contest on the ground. They're taking on a Denver defense who's one of the toughest in the game. These guys are giving up only 12 points per contest, and they rank in the top 3 in total yards allowed. This D-line has 9 sacks through 3 games. Alex Singleton also has 17 tackles and a couple of PDs. When it comes to the injury report here, Turner, Jones, Cleveland, Browning, Miners, and Cooper, they're all listed as questionable for the Broncos. Meanwhile, for Vegas, Perryman, Nichols, Yassine, Renfro, and Morig, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the number, LV saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line. Meanwhile, Denver's 3-0 to the under themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Broncos +2.5, under 46. Next ball game, Pats, Pack, 4:25 East. Green Bay is minus 10.5 at home, totals 41. And even though I hate laying double digits in this league, I actually think the Packers have the best defense on the field in this one. They're allowing only 15 points a game, and they've also limited their opponents to under 190 yards a game passing. Now, offensively, this is a Green Bay team who's done a nice job running the football. They're currently in the top 10 in rush yards per contest. They're facing a New England team on the other side who's had problems keeping offenses out of the end zone this year. Typically, with the Pats, it's their defense. But these guys are giving up 24 points a game. Meanwhile, offensively, they're going to have to go to work without Mac Jones. At least it looks like. I think there's no way he's playing. Looks like they're going to have to go to work without Mac Jones. And to be honest, they weren't really good when he was in the ball game, that offensive unit. The Pats are scoring only 16 points per contest. Now, injury-wise, once again, Mac Jones, he's banged up. Probably not going to see him. So I don't think you're going to see him for a couple of weeks here. But keep an eye on the injury report with regard to Jones. Also, Mills, Guy, Duggar, and Myers, they are questionable for New England. Meanwhile, for the Pack, on the other side, Watson and Alexander are questionable. Sammy Watkins still on IR with a hammy. When it comes to the number, Green Bay's 3-0 to the under for the year. Meanwhile, New England saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line. I'm going to lean toward the Packers, minus 10.5, under 41 in the tight window. Next ball game, Chiefs, Bucks, 8:20 p.m. East. Kansas City's minus 2, totals 45 and a hook. And even though Kansas City's played some solid defense, it's the Bucks who have the best D on the field. These guys are giving up only 9 points a game. They're also in the top 5 in fewest yards allowed. Devin White has 24 tackles, 3 sacks, and a couple of PDs. Meanwhile, Jamel Dean has a pair of interceptions out of that secondary. Now, they probably won't have to worry about Kansas City running it down their throats. KC's rushing for only 93 yards a game. They also failed to cover in their last 2 straight. And they scored only 17 points against Indy in a loss last week. Now, injury-wise, Dana and Bucker are still questionable for Kansas City. Meanwhile, for the Bucks, Jones and McCollum are questionable. Godwin and Smith are still out. When it comes to the number, Tampa Bay's 3-0 to the under this year. Meanwhile, KC saw their last 2 straight fall under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Tampa Bay plus 2, under 45.5. Next and final matchup for the video, it is going to be Rams at the Niners, 8:15 Monday Night Football. San Francisco's minus 2.5, totals 43. Now, the Niners are having significant problems offensively this year. They're averaging only 15 points a game, and they're in the bottom 5 in passing. They're facing a Rams team who won their last 2 straight, and they scored 51 total points in those victories. Cooper Kupp's got 3 touchdowns on the year, and he averages nearly 100 yards a game receiving. Meanwhile, defensively, Bobby Wagner, he has 23 tackles and a couple of sacks. Now, injury-wise, Fuller and Durant are questionable for Los Angeles. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, Croft, Armstead, Brunskill, Toure, and Alshare, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, San Fran's 3-0 to the under this year. Meanwhile, the Rams saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line. I'm going to lean toward the LA Rams plus 2.5, under 43. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where I'm currently 11-3 with a push in my last 15 NFL tier package bets dating back to last season. I like Miami plus 3.5, under 47 and a hook. Give me New Orleans plus 2.5, over 43.5 points. Give me the Giants minus 3, under 39. Philadelphia minus 6.5, under 48. Detroit minus 4.5, over 50. LA Chargers minus 5.5, over 44. Indianapolis minus 3.5, under 43. Buffalo minus 3.5, over 51. Cleveland minus 1.5, over 49.5 points. New York Jets plus 3.5, over 40. Dallas minus 3, under 42 and a hook. Arizona plus 2, under 42. Denver plus 2.5, under 46. Green Bay Packers minus 10.5 under 41. Tampa Bay plus 2 under 45.5. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward the LA Rams plus 2.5 under 43. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my website. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy NFL Week 4 to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.